know I've been around and doing it, but now it's my time to shine and start proving it. I'm losing it, I'm moving it. The city is where I'm made, Bostonian flow, I kick it back there. Yeah, I got game, got in a fan way. We the city of the champs, every sport we play. Spit wetter than the harbor, yeah, I'm flowing like the Charles. I be speeding on this beat, call it Turnpike Miles. Yeah, it's Google signing on, John to the Hancock, and I'm always key, I'm ready to unlock. I be doing big things.
Welcome back, everyone, to the newest edition of Once a Week. I'm Billy Jan Ludis. Telling you guys, I hope you have seen our guest right now. He's been on our show before, whether in person, whether through Zoom right now. He is the host of the Growth by Shawn podcast. He has so much experience in many different areas, and I haven't been able to talk to him for what seems maybe 2 years or so. We got an episode coming out that we were on the Low Gravity podcast together in a couple weeks, but Shawn and I haven't been able to sit down together and really dive into a topic, and he's been through so many experiences the last few years since our last talk. I wanted to get him back on here, one, to dive into all this, because we got a lot for you today, but also his Growth by Shawn podcast is about to start up again, and he just told me before we start recording who his next guest is, and I'm telling you, there's some great information coming at you. But Shawn, I thank you for being here, man, and it's a blast to see you back up for this.
Yeah, Billy, every time we talk, it's always magical for me. So I was so excited to connect back when we did Low Gravity a couple weeks ago, and then when you invited me back on the show, I know that people just love, like, when the two of us come, just as I was talking earlier, like the two of us are two really big personalities. So
Right,
every time we're able to go and just sit and chat together, it's always really, really exciting for me, valuable for me, just as I know it is for you. So
yeah,
thanks for having me. Yeah.
Of course. And I agree to that. Definitely two big personalities and whatnot. But just with the Low Gravity one, I think it's funny when that comes out, because you and I were joking about it, how it's not that we intended to take over the conversation. It just kind of happened. And we brought it to so many great areas for the other hosts that were on with us. And I can't wait to have both of them on my show just as much. But with that, you've been going through so many, I'm going to say, great moments, changes, ups, downs the last few years. And you kind of filled me in on that before we hopped on. I've got a glare going at me right now. But regardless, man, let's dive into that a little bit of your story, because it sounds like you have found such a center point in alignment in your life for your own presence, for peace, for a connection points. Fill us in a little bit, man. How did that all come about?
Yeah, so just like we were talking, so the last 2 years have just been such a roller coaster ride for me. And I was having a lot of trouble just being able to regulate my nervous system, like find peace within myself, like figure out what I want to do in the world. Just like many people are listening can probably relate to just like the simple aspects of that, right? Like 28 years old, you feel like you're old, but you feel like you're young. You're not really sure.
Right.
And so for me, like I definitely feel like I'm very young. Like life has just started, right?
Yeah.
Today is the first day of the rest of my life.
Nice.
And so over the past 2 years, like the deeper, darker side to a degree was I had gotten a DUI 2 years ago. And so like at first it feels, why is this happening to me? Right. Just like you say, just like Tony says, okay, is life happening to you or for you?
Right.
And it's one thing to like understand that concept. It's another to embody that concept. And so when I had gotten this DUI 2 years ago, like I was drinking all the time. Like I was working in a restaurant. Like it was really easy. Like I really had a lot of anger and resentment towards a lot of people. And what it taught me was that, okay, this is just like who I was being. Like this is just me taking ownership and having acceptance of that.
Right.
And so at the time, it wasn't something where I started to look at my erratic behavior, but I was just like, ugh, like I hate life even more.
Yeah.
Like I was just miserable from it. But then over this 2-year process, because anyone that's been in the court system understands, okay, this took 2 years to even get resolved, you know?
Right.
And so over the last 2 years, it was God telling me, look, this is what you're doing and this is what you say you want, and they're not aligning, right? And so for some people, like it might be a third DUI, it might be going to jail, it might be your spouse breaking up with you. And that's that point that you need to get to in order to make that change. Right. For a lot of people, what's so great about like hitting this like rock bottom is that it's where you can create from nothing, because that's where all creation comes from. If you're creating just from all of the external things that are coming into your consciousness, then you're just creating someone else's idea. But when you have a rock bottom, then you really just have nothing. That's where your true creation starts to come from.
Yeah.
So over the last 3 months, like I've taken some different courses on addiction, dharma, a higher purpose, your calling, all of these different aspects. And it really showed me a different way of being.
Nice.
And just who I was actually being.
Yeah.
And then one of the greatest like things, like I have so many different metaphors now and things like this that like really clicked with me. And so when I look at even just like something like an addiction or something where you're relying on alcohol or marijuana or whatever, XYZ, it's often more of something that you're trying to use to just a way to soothe yourself.
Yep.
And that was one of the most like, oh my God, that clicked. I'm trying to soothe myself of a feeling that I don't know how to feel fully. Because life, luckily, gives us all of the experience. It has us have all of the emotions, not just the good ones or the bad ones or however you want to portray that. So now, just like we talked about, I'm starting the podcast back up and I'm really excited about it. I needed that little break from it.
Yep.
You know, I remember the last podcast that I had done was with the mentor that I ended up signing up to do a course with.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We had done a podcast on a Facebook group. He had commented on one of my posts.
Okay.
And he was like, hey, I want to be a guest. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like I was just kind of going through the motions with things.
Yep.
So we ended up having to reschedule. And then he was like, oh, I can only do this time. And then I'm leaving for like Costa Rica for 2 weeks or something. And so we ended up doing the podcast I can remember it very vividly, on a Wednesday night at 9:00 at night.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, why did I agree to this? All of these things.
Yeah.
And talking with him was so different because it was the energy.
Yeah.
Right. It's, oh my God, like it's not even just what he's saying. It's how I feel when I'm talking to him. And I just knew. I was like, I need to have another conversation with this guy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like pushy or things like that. He challenged me in good and appropriate ways at the time. And I was like, whatever you guys are doing, you know what? Screw it, I'm in.
Yeah.
And like, that was definitely one of the moments where, especially when we were talking through the course of connecting to a higher power, one, treat it as a relationship, right? You go and you date your wife or you date your girlfriend, right? You're buying her flowers this day and then you're taking her on a date this day. Then you got a little affirmation here. So the same thing with like finding faith in God and however you want to portray that higher power, it's a continual act and process. 100%. So it's not just, okay, you know, I'm going to sit there and pray on my knees and hope all of my issues go away or my circumstances change. Well, that can be one thing, right? Yep. But at the same time, like, okay, you know, I could read this Bible verse as well, or I could go and listen to, I have the mobile Bible app, or, you know, I do a journaling practice. There's so many different ways to go and like figure out and like create that relationship with faith and a higher power.
For sure. Yeah. I love it, man. You've been through, I don't even want to call it the ringer. You've been you found yourself in a way. As much as you're finding yourself, and we're all finding ourselves. I love, because I can very much relate to it, when someone goes through what most of the world would call a down moment. It's more so it's a break. It's a moment where life is trying to get you to stop. He's described the DUI happened. You even described it in your own words where, you know, everything stops. And now God's like, hey, do you get it? Do you understand now? I need you to go this way. I need you to go this way. Or you want to go this way. You say that you have this goal, but everything you're saying is taking you this route, much as you described. And I relate to that so much because in my own story, and I know I've talked to you about this before, but when I was going through so much, everything fell apart, relationship, family, job, everything like that. It's kind of everything that sparked me to go. Yes, in the time of change, a lot of people have a lot of emotions flying. I was depressed, I was angry, I was upset at where my life was going, but I had that ultimate dream, that vision that was, even no matter how terrible I felt, was still walking me in that direction. And then eventually it clicks, just as it did for you, where it's like, oh, who I was, yes, had that vision, but was unable to get there because of what I was carrying with me there, which could have been the bad relationship, which could have been the family struggles, it could have been the job that was trying to hound you and everything. And so when all that went away, you finally have, yes, your emotions, but you have a clear moment where if you pick yourself up, it's like, oh, I wasn't allowed to bring all that into the next chapter of my life. So everything had to crumble. As you said, you have nothing now. And that's the greatest place of creation. Because if you have nothing, all you have is yourself, your mind, your consciousness, everything that you are is what the world needs. And from there, you can start walking in that. And that's exactly what you're doing, Shawn. Whether it's from the mentor you talked to on the final podcast you did, leading into reviving it now, you bring such a light to people. But usually when we're going through an emotional period or we're angry or whatever, it's as, you know, we're angry at the external. And when we're so focused on the external, we miss it on the internal. And if we bring a light and we don't realize the light that we bring, sometimes that light gets put out because we're so focused on the world around us, for that matter.
Yeah. And that's the whole, when people talk, right? It's okay, you know, I'll be happy when I have this amount of money, or, and this is something that people bring up every single day, right?
Yeah,
and so many people understand this concept, but again, they don't embody the concept. That's where the disconnect is. That's where that lack of alignment is. And so it's just like a muscle, just like at the gym, right? You go and you have to, it takes repetition, right? And so for someone that understands conceptually, oh, I'll be happy when, but oh no, I should actually just be happy now, or I should bring, like, I should be joyful now. That's just that muscle that needs to continue to be retrained. It's like it's like riding in a boat and then the sail goes off course and then you need to realign it. Then the sail goes off course and then you realign it. It's the same thing. So if you're someone that, okay, you know what, I'll be happy when I get this promotion, or I'll be happy when the weekend comes, right? That's an easy example. So bringing happiness and joy to this moment right now, just continue to do that over and over each day. And for some people, that might be their practice right now. That might be their small spiritual practice that they can do. It's, all right, I'm going to this job. I hate this job, but how can I bring joy to this job just today or for the next hour? And the more that you continue to do that, the more that you'll actually find peace and happiness and understanding with who you are and what you're doing to your life now, instead of continually waiting for that moment.
It's true. Yeah. Oh, I want people to rewind everything Shawn just said, because that's so, you said it in such an incredible way, because it's so powerful. It's so profound. And I agree with you. Like, so many of us, we focus on the clock. So if we go to a job that we don't like, or I can remember back in school, and Shawn, you and I have talked about this before, where we're back in school, back in the day, we're watching that clock tick, hoping, cannot wait for that final bell because we want to get out of there. So we're always focused on the clock and the hours and the minutes and everything like that. Truthfully, you think about that, time is not moment by moment. The time on our watch is hour by hour, minute by minute, second by second. If we look at our life as moment by moment rather than hourly, for that matter, you can find that you're okay. If I can just be joyful for here and now, just this one moment, and then into the next moment, and then to the next moment. It's not the next 3 hours I have to be joyful. The next 3 hours I have to be on my game because my boss is talking to me. No, just be here now. There's one present moment, and then into the next. And that to me rejuvenates us. It recovers us. It doesn't drain you anymore. Much like if we're looking to the future, or if when I get enough money, or when I get the girl or the guy, or when this happens, you're putting your energy out to the future. So you have nothing for you here, where your joy is, where your love is, where your self-love is, where your confidence is, all these areas. So when we're draining our energy by searching elsewhere, the external factor is the hourlies down the line, the future for that matter, we're drained. So now all of our joy is gone. So yeah, I'm going to look at my job and I'm not going to like it. I'm going to look at this relationship and I'm not going to like it. I'm going to look at the bank account and I'm not going to like it. But that's where, when you flip it, much like Shawn said, for people listening, when you flip it, and it's like a muscle, it really is. You have to flip it, but you got to train this. If you can be joyful and realize that all your needs are met for what you need now, and if that's your finances, if you have a roof over your head, if you have enough gas in the tank to get you from point A to point B, all your needs are met for right now. When you level up that belief aspect and you trust that, hey, as long as I'm good now, I'm attracting good in, I'm attracting more in. And that's where your mind really comes into play in deeper areas. But if it all comes down to the joy we're living in, the energy we're living in, what are we putting out there? And a lot of us don't realize we're putting out there tough energy.
Yep.
So life gets tougher.
Yep.
When joy is such a greater energy, it's such a relaxed energy, it's such a loving, a powerful energy. So it welcomes in more of joy, more opportunities to be joyful, and we get to find ourselves and have that smile back for that matter.
Yeah. I want to share a quick example that that someone can do, that's something tangible.
For sure.
That I did for the last 21 days was write out a 21 amazing life journal where I just talked about different accomplishments that I had in terms of external things, but I also wrote about different internal accomplishments that I had. So, oh my God, I remember when I first told one of my sisters, I hid my DUI for one of my sisters for the 2 years. I was really nervous. And I had decided I was going to have a conversation with her and tell her how I was struggling on all of these different areas. And it was this cloud of relief that happened to me.
Yeah.
It was the most amazing, energetic experience of my entire life, because I was holding on to all of these different judgments and an energy of, oh my God, what is she going to say? Is she going to look at me differently? But it was something that became, okay, now let me just get all this out. This is who I've been. And she was like, oh my God, whatever. And it was just such a breath of fresh air. And our relationship has now changed.
Nice.
And so, that was one of the things I wrote in my 21 Amazing Life Journal. I love how I showed up to that conversation.
Nice. Yeah.
It was so amazing for me. And so that's something that someone could do for the next 21 days. And most people listening to this will not do that. Okay. And I know that. I know that. But then someone goes and listens to this a year later.
Right.
Then they may go and, you know what, their consciousness, it's different. It's at a different level. And they're like, you know what, actually, I'm going to do this now. And things will change, because now you're going to look for those areas of gratitude and what you've done and who you are and the energy that you're putting out.
For sure.
And another thing with the energy, think about the boss that you have, right? It's oftentimes we come from an energy of, this is what I'm expecting them to say, or this is how I'm expecting them to react. Right. So let go of that expectation and come from a more curious position. And when you come from a different energy, instead of coming from the energy of, this is going to be combative, I'm nervous about this. And there's different ways to regulate yourself to make that conversation easier. But oftentimes we put out the energy of a certain expectation, and that's what we get back. Right? It's or if someone bumps into you at the grocery market and you're like, oh my God, what the F, what why would you do that? Right. Then all of a sudden they're combative back to you. But if you play off more of a whoopsie, something silly, right? Sure. Then they're like, oh no, sorry about that. My bad. So whatever you're putting out there is also what you're getting back. Exactly. And now I'm not just going and telling people okay, every single time that you do that, go and bump into someone at the grocery store and just say, oopsie, and you know, no one's ever going to get mad at you or upset with you. That's not what I'm saying, but start to see in your everyday life how much you're expecting someone to react in one way, and what you're doing and who you're being in each conversation, and how that is often reflected back to you.
For sure. That's powerful. That's it's self-reflection. That's a great intervention people can do for themselves for, as you said, 21 days. Yeah. And to really look at those moments in your life where, it doesn't have to be grocery, it could be the gym, could be you with your son, your daughter, your family, your parents, whatever it is. But you, people listening, you are showing up for your moments as a version of yourself based off of the expectations that Shawn just said, in the sense of, you gave a great example with the boss, or even if we feel that we have to be a certain version of ourselves, we have to put a mask on essentially to go into the world, to go to school, to go to our meetings, to go to our homes sometimes, to be the certain version of ourselves. I think a lot of growing up, we have the imagery of the man of the house. And the man of the house, nothing goes wrong with the man of the house. He's a strong one. He has to handle everything. He does all that stuff. Or it's kind of, in this day and age, might be an old version viewpoint of that. But if we're putting the mask on, that's the expectations you have for yourself that are coming out. And if those expectations, like, yes, they can get you from point A to point B, but to take the mask off, to take the expectations away, to really get clear on who you are and who you claim to be, but who you want to be in these moments. As you gave your example with your sister, Shawn, you had an expectation that was going to be a terrifying situation, right? And it caused you to kind of kept putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. And then eventually you went for it. I'm like, wow, this wasn't that bad. She actually accepted that. Because again, looking at the self-reflection piece, for people listening, we don't know what's going through the other person's head. We don't know the changes the other person has been going through. And if someone bumps into us in the grocery lane, for that matter, and they respond out of anger, this has happened to me before, where it could be a grocery store, it could be whatever. I can give you an example. A couple of years ago, as this is around Christmas time, I got hit in the CVS parking lot, and a guy backed into my truck. And I'm sitting in my truck, and I feel everything go forward. And I get out of my truck, and I'm like, I got like 10% of me is trying, that's just who I am. 10% of me is like, man, what the heck? The other 9% is like, I get out of the truck and I look, there's no damage on my truck. I look at his car, there's no damage. He's like waiting in his car. He's like terrified that I'm going to, because I got out of my car. He's afraid. And I look at him like, hey, you good? He goes, yeah, I'm okay. I'm like, all right. Hey, Merry Christmas. Have a good one. I just left it at that. Like, and you know, that's just this. It obviously, if there was more that happened to the cars, it'd be a different situation here and there. You have to have more conversations. But when you show up in a greater level, usually a greater level comes out of that situation. But if my expectation or that guy's expectation of, oh my goodness, that guy just got out of his car, he's gonna be so mad at me, I hit his car, and then he's not. To me, that changes that person's entire viewpoint of that moment. But the next moment he's in with someone else. So that's where we can become a chain of change, for that matter, where if I show up, like if you hit someone in the grocery lane, to use that example again, and they just react out of anger, you can tell my first thought would be, wow, that person's having a very, very bad day, and you apologetic, everything like that. But it shows you what other people are going through. So one, you then start to show up differently. Two, how you respond to that person in the sense of, hey, I apologize, I'm really sorry I hit you, blah, blah, however you would. And that guy's viewpoint has now changed. He's like, oh, you know what? I shouldn't have been mean to that guy. Shouldn't have been awful. And then now that guy changes. So you become a chain reaction of change for other people because you looked at your self-reflection. How do I show up in my moments? How do I show up for myself? How do I show up for other people? So encompassing this entire thing, Shawn, I love that intervention. That's powerful right there. And you've done you just did it for the recent 21 days, or you've been doing it more often?
I just did it for the last 21 days. And that was one of like our part of our coursework, like to kind of finish out. We did it primarily from like January to February. And at first it was difficult to like, okay, I've got a couple of different moments, like, okay, these are cool. Yeah. But then I was like, you know, you continue to do it, and then more continued to flow through me. And I was like, oh, I have this, and oh, and then there was this, and oh, and then there was this. And so the more you do it, it's just the repetition. It's just the repetition with everything. And then I would go and sit and meditate on those 10, like for 10 minutes on that moment of like, oh my God, how did I feel during that? How can I bring that energy into me right now? And now, just like we talk about with like on that higher level of like energy and frequency and, you're attracting what you are, the more that you can have that be more of a baseline, right? That gratitude and that love you felt in that moment. And the more that you can continue to elevate and elevate and elevate yourself to feel that and embody that. And I'm going to use the term embodiment a lot today, as I already have. And for anyone that feels like a little disconnection from the word embodiment, to help clarify for them, embodiment is really, it's one thing to say something, it's another thing to live it. And that's really the essence of what embodiment is, right? It's like if you see a personal trainer at the gym, and this used to be me, where they may be a little overweight, they know all of the things to do, but they're not actually practicing what they preach, right? And I'm not saying that everyone has to be God's gift in terms of a physique, yet at the same time, if you're doing one thing, but you're saying someone else, there's a disconnect, a lack of embodiment, and a lack of alignment. And that's where that pain and suffer, there's that friction. Right. And so just like with you, with the, like the examples that you shared, it's that ripple effect. So many of us say, I want to change the world, or I want to have a bigger impact, or all of these different things. And I urge people to look at why they're asking for that, because that used to be a part of what I was doing. Oh, I want to change the world. I want to do that. Well, okay. All you really need to do is change who you're being today, because then that ripple effect starts to happen.
Right.
And when you unravel those layers deeper, often, or I shouldn't even project here, more for what was happening for me.
Right.
Why did I want to change the world? Well, I wanted that validation,
Mm.
right? Oh, well, if I can go and then I'll have, 10 people sit and then 100 people and then 1,000 people. And okay, I've got all of these clients, or all of these people are giving me praise for how I've changed their life.
Mm.
But if you go into that moment of you at the CVS, or you at the grocery store and someone got angry, and then you went and acted differently, and you said, hey, you know what, now it's all good, man, like all this thing. And then that carries over into that person. And then that person takes that moment and they go and carry it into their life. And that affects 2 people. And then those 2 people affect 4 more people.
Yep. Exactly.
This ripple effect is ginormous. And you really impacted all of these people. It's just that you can't see it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And
it's
that's,
true.
The same thing with faith. It's oftentimes you can't see it.
Exactly.
Right? So when you're looking to make a bigger impact, all you really need to do is how you're showing up today. Right. It's not that you need to go and have all of this big, huge, a huge platform and a big this XYZ. Like, think about the 100 views or the 200 views that you may have on an Instagram post or a reel, right? If 200 people are looking at it, and we often use the example of, okay, imagine 200 people standing in front of you. Even if no one interacts with you, you have no idea who actually took something away from that. And I'll give someone a tangible example. That way I'm not just kind of talking randomly here. I had a guy a few years ago who I used to work with. Like, I used to work with him like 10 years ago. And I was posting the podcast. I was posting physical transformations, all of these different things on my social media. And I saw him in Target one day. And I was like, hey, man, how's it going? And he was like, bro, oh my God, I love what you do on social media. Like, it's so motivating to you. Like, it gets me into the gym. And I was like, whoa, like, cool, thank you. And he had never interacted with me once on social media. He never commented on something. He never liked a post. I didn't even realize that he followed me. But that's that ripple effect where you don't know just until someone reflects that back to you.
Exactly.
Right. So everyone that's doing something right now, everyone in your everyday life, you're impacting people. You just don't realize the impact that you're having.
It's true. Right. And then come back to the self-reflection. When people check up on what that impact is, because they're checking up on how they embody and show up in their life, you can change the impact from might be negative to now positive in whatever way. And, when you were going over that, Shawn, I thought of, you've been to my workshops in the past, but I teach the emotional guidance scale, which is that, like, what's your baseline? What emotion is your baseline you live at? And then we raise it. So that's exactly it. How do you embody? What emotion do you embody? What emotion do you live at? And then if that's your baseline, how can we raise it? How can we get to a greater place of joy or love or peace or gratitude, whatever people are? So everything Shawn just said, guys, I'm telling you, there's so much truth behind it. And when you were going over, basically the phrase of be the change you want to see in the world. That's something that a lot of us have heard before. That's a great quote. It's passed around the world for sure, but it's truthfully it. But the more I study us, we'll say people, you start to realize our viewpoints of the world, our viewpoints of reality are ours. My viewpoint of the world is different than Shawn's viewpoint of the world. And people listening and watching right now is the same thing, very different than our reality, our viewpoint. So to echo what Shawn said, to even more so, as you start to change yourself, you start to change your world. And if you show up in a greater light, or show up in a greater positivity, or whatever term people want to use on this, confidence for that matter, as you embody that, you literally become the change that you want to see in the world. And to echo Shawn's point, the ripple effect happens. So because you changed, now everything changes around you. Everything that you attract in changes. Everything that you put out there changes. That's the point of energy in our lives, because we are energy. We're energetic beings. We're spiritual beings. We're human beings. But at the end of the day, the energy we put out is the energy we get back. And when we comprehend that, to add to it, everyone's heard the term the law of attraction before, but there's other laws of the universe. The law of resonance is the law, the energy that you resonate at. what you live at, what you embody. So if you resonate at a joyful energy, means you're putting out a joyful energy, so you attract in a joyful energy. And so that's the beauty of energy in our lives. But Shawn, you have brought in so much information on these deeper concepts. And I think people can grasp it the way you described it. You mentioned before you took a course on Dharma. I would love to dive into that.
Yeah.
As the next chapter of this conversation. Explain it. Explain your viewpoints on that. As you never hear. I've heard that word before, but I feel like not too many people come across that word Dharma, and it's very important.
Dharma for me can be interchangeable with purpose, your calling. All three of those are very intertwined for me. And so a lot of the work we had done was finding our Dharma, finding our purpose, finding our calling. And it's paradoxical just in the way we talk about it, because, it's something that we need to find. It's not something we need to find. It's something that we are.
We are, yeah.
And so when you look at your Dharma or your purpose or your calling, and I'll just continue to use the word Dharma from here out, oftentimes we're looking for something external. Like when we were talking about owning a coffee shop, right? Okay, well, is my Dharma to go and own a coffee shop, right? Well, yes and no, right? It's Dharma is having a purpose with everything that you do and who you are. And so when you are the Dharma, you are the purpose. And so just like looking for joy out in your life, when you bring joy to everything that you do, you're not chasing anymore. Because the more that you begin to chase those things, the more you become attached to them. And the less you can become attached, the more purpose and peace you'll find within yourself. And so for anyone that's looking for their purpose, or like, why am I here on this earth, right? It's really about just looking inward. And so you can do even a simple practice of look for a moment in your life where you felt time just didn't even exist. Like you were so fulfilled and loved what you were doing. And it may be something that you were doing, right? It may be something where you were in front of someone, or you were, how else could I word this? Let me just use my own example for me. And hopefully this will resonate better. So I think about a moment where I had so much joy and peace and fulfillment within myself. And it was when I had this guinea pig. Her name was Respucia. And my sister and I, we ended up having to put Respucia down. And so we went to a coffee shop after. And I remember, like, we had the most intimate, in-depth conversation about what Respucia meant to us and all of these different things. And we bonded over, like, just having coffee. And so now I look and I'm like, oh my God, like that moment that I was able to bring so much peace and fulfillment was us just bonding over coffee. And that's what's driving me towards owning that coffee shop, because I'm going to be able to give that to someone else, right? It's where can you be of service to people, right? And so in your everyday life, if you're not enjoying the job that you want to do or something like that, right? And you're looking for purpose, well, what do you want to bring to other people? And now, right, think of like an emotion. You want to bring joy. You want to bring love. You want to bring freedom to people, right? And so how can you bring that to yourself today and then bring that to other people with everything that you do? And all of a sudden, your purpose isn't something that you're looking for anymore. It's just who you are.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's really in the essence of what I'm figuring out of what my Dharma is. And so that moment of us bonding over that coffee and how much joy and peace we found in that bonding moment, how much love and how much connection we had. Now, how much love and connection and fulfillment can I bring to my everyday life? And so when I do that, okay, now my Dharma is fulfilled because I'm doing it.
Yeah. Right. Oh, I love that. I think that's such an incredible explanation, Shawn. And I love the example you gave of with the guinea pig but the moment that came after, just the fact that you and your sister, and for people listening, the coffee shop, that conversation before Shawn and I started recording, that's a vision, goal, dream, whatever term you want to put on it, that Shawn and his sister have to start a coffee shop together. And if you follow Shawn on Instagram, you'll see some food reviews, some coffee shop reviews, and everything. And that's a hobby they have, but it's growing. But now to hear the backstory, Shawn, of that all stemmed from, it's a pivotal moment when you got to put it, no matter what the pet is, to put an animal down, man, it's one of the most toughest moments that we go through as human beings, because we're so attached. Our emotions are really there. It's such a loving aspect. For you and your sister to have such a great moment, and to know, and as you mentioned, your Dharma, your joy, you guys had such a loving moment there, and to know what was created from it, of this coffee shop vision, we'll say, it shows you that you're following. You found it, but you're following your purpose. When we were on the Low Gravity podcast, I explained my own example of purpose, because when that gets released, I hope they release it soon, man, because that's such for people listening. It's coming out. It's going to be an incredible episode. Yep. But purpose was a very big backdrop for that episode. And I explained, in my perspective, I feel like our purpose is always staring us in the face. And it's a matter of us clearing everything out so we can see it. And it comes back to exactly what Shawn just said, of your purpose isn't necessarily to own a coffee shop. Your purpose is to find the joy in yourself, your self-love, we'll say. And as Shawn said, how can I share that to other people? Well, Shawn finds that joy and that self-love in everything that he does. He feels fulfilled, but he found his creativity in this coffee shop idea that him and his sister are bringing forth. So his purpose is directly related. The joy, the love, the peace, the self-love, the self-respect, everything, fulfillment is directly related to creating this with your sister. And so to me, that's your purpose right there. It's not the purpose. Like, I think all of us, we look at our purpose as this, it has to be something magnificent and giant and whatnot. It is magnificent and it is giant, but we have to look at it, and as we said earlier, our own eyes, our own world. If we're comparing our purpose, our viewpoint, our world, our reality to someone else's life, to someone else's world, to someone else's reality, you're robbing yourself of the joy. So your purpose is what it needs to be for people listening right now, but don't overthink your purpose. It could be right there with you. It could be anything that you find creation with, that you find that love with. That's where it's guiding you. So Shawn, with the concept of Dharma, oh my goodness, I love what so to people listening, I even said this to Shawn before we even record the Low Gravity podcast, and I texted you after, to see, Shawn, where you've come from over the past 2 years since I last talked to you, or however long it's been, to see where you were. There was nothing bad with where you were. From, like, obviously hearing where you went to the DUI, everything like this, like decisions were made and everything, but to see where you were, I never questioned. I knew you were driven. I knew you were learning. You were someone that had a love for life and a love for experience. And to see now the connection that you've added to that love for life and that love for experience, the love for adventure, and the creation you've added to it, it shows you, man, like, you are in an incredible place. And as much as life will have its ups and its downs and everything in between, it's all leading you to finding more about you. And that's the beauty of it. It's the purpose of life, for that matter.
Yeah, I appreciate that, like, greatly, of course. Like, just especially from you, and how much mutual respect that I have for you. And so, especially oftentimes when we're thinking about, like, the lessons that we're learning in life, right? Like, it's easy for us, all right? It's easy for me to say, okay, well, this is teaching you something. Just looking at someone's life from the outside, like, all right, well, it's going to be a lesson at some point, or all of these different things that, like, we say to soothe someone else at times. And when we look at our own life, it's often difficult for us to look at, okay, what is this teaching me while we're going through it? But then all of a sudden, when we reflect back on it, we're like, oh my God, that's why that happened. Right? Yeah. That's why that happened. If I had never even gotten this DUI in 2022, I would have never signed up for this course that I just took. I wouldn't have even had different teachings on Dharma and purpose. Right? I could be in a completely different spot. And that's where, okay, no matter where you are right now, no matter who's listening, no matter who you've been or what you've done, trust that has guided you to this very moment. And so even for someone that's just listening to this conversation, this might be that aha, epiphany, breakthrough type moment where, oh my God, I've been the worst person in the world. Now I found Once a Week with Billy, and I'm listening to these two guys. They're talking about all of this dharma, purpose, energy, all of these different concepts. And okay, it doesn't, like, my life and who I've been has led me up to this moment. And this is going to be the moment that I'm able to change because of who I've been.
Right.
Because if you've just been this happy-go-lucky kid all your life, like, sure, there are people out there and they have plenty of joy and fulfillment and insert emotion, right?
Yep.
But if you're someone that's also had a lot of hardship and you're like, why am I going through all of this hardship? It's just because you can't see what the lesson is yet. And as you're going through it, it's so difficult to see the lesson. But then afterwards, it's like, of course that's why it happened. Because if I hadn't had that, I wouldn't have given up drinking for the last year or so, things like that.
Yeah.
Like, I would have still been doing the same behavior over and over and over and wondering why my life isn't changing.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I completely agree. I love that. And that's why I always come back to with my clients and audiences, like, when we're struggling, there's a lesson in it. There's a lesson that we need to learn. And when you learn the lesson, you pass the test, you level up. And being a coach in that aspect, it's always a challenge for people when they're in it, when you ask them. But I always try and put the question out there. Like you mentioned, when you were during the drinking moments, you're not thinking about what the lesson is. They're like, oh,
No.
I'm doing this. It's reaction. I'm doing this. You're not thinking, as you said earlier, the emotion underneath all of it that you're avoiding and whatnot. As you mentioned, I think your example you gave at the start of our recording was the alcohol, the drugs. Like, people are doing it to soothe some sort of emotion. But when people are in the process of it, they're not thinking, oh, what am I soothing right now? And I think everyone always says hindsight's 20/20. You're able to see clearly in hindsight for sure. But I always love to put out the question to my coaching clients when they are not necessarily struggling, but if it pops up, it pops up. But when they're questioning why they're not getting a result they want to get. And I said, all right, well, so a struggle is going on. So we'll say, all right, well, let's break it down right now. So if you had to say, what's the lesson that you're meant to learn in the process you're going through right now? And for people listening right now, people watching right now, you might be going through something and you might not know why. Let's try and answer why. If I really broke down the situations I'm going through, why am I going through it? What is it teaching me? What is my soul getting out of me going through this hurdle, this struggle, this love? It could be something great. It could be love. It could be gratitude. It could be something incredible, because we're learning constantly in life. It doesn't just have to be in the low moments. You learn in the high moments just as much. And I feel that when, much to both of our life examples, Shawn, is we have learned the most when we're at the bottom, because you go all the way up. Yep. And then it doesn't mean that you're always at the top, but I think we all have they call it the crucible. I mean, if you can get through, you have your breakdown, you kind of on your way up. And I explained to one of my younger clients, I'm actually seeing him after our recording, is life isn't always a up down concept. It's up, 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 up. It's these little divots after you have that big dip, because you've gained so much in the big dip that now you realize the process I'm in. I'm constantly learning. So now in my own life, I go through examples, whatever it might be, and question, all right, what the heck? Why did that person respond this way? And rather than me getting emotional and reacting to it, I respond to it, but then in my own head, I'm processing. And I think processing, thinking on, not overly thinking to the point of anxiety or anything like that, or OCD in some terms. It's more so just, all right, let me break this down. Let me figure out why this happened. Why did I go through this? What was the reason behind this? And that comes back to what you said earlier, Shawn, the Tony Robbins quote that everyone says of life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. And that connects to everyone. That connects to me. It connects to you. It connects to everyone listening right now. So if life is happening for me, what is in it for me? What do I get out of this? And it's always a greater answer for people listening. There's always a gift in what you're going through. I think of the, big fan, Kung Fu Panda, back in the day. But there's a quote that sticks out where, basically the end of the quote is the present is called the present for a reason, because the present is a gift. So in this present moment, what is the gift here? And if I'm using my present moment to process my past or look to the future, what is the gift I'm getting out of that process? And when we can find that gift, that could be the lesson. Don't take life too seriously. Yeah. Don't hold life too hard and attached, as Shawn said earlier. allow yourself to be yourself, to find yourself, and then move forward from there. That's your dharma, following your dharma and everything. But now you are fully embodied. If we want to connect all these pieces together, you're fully embodied as this greater version of yourself, and this greater joy, this self-love. And when you walk in that energy, life brings you more to show you that energy.
Yep.
It all connects together.
Let's give everyone just a couple more examples
Mhm.
to help really bring this point home.
For sure.
So just like you talked about the big dips, right?
Yep.
Sometimes we have the big dip, the rock bottom moment, and sometimes it's more just like little divots, right? And so an easy metaphor to start to consider for people is how low you can go is also how high you can fly. All right.
Okay.
So when we look at these big bottom moments, if we were to think about, for people that are listening, if you are friends with this trust fund baby, okay, they've never had any hardship. They have $1 million in their bank account and they're just kind of like chilling. How much do you connect with them? You may connect on some level. You may connect greatly, but then think about your own life and your own struggles and challenges. And do you think that they really understand you? And can they connect with those challenges? So all of these different challenges are just a different way for you to connect even deeper with someone else. Because then you might go and meet someone that's like, holy smokes, like you've had a really tough life, but you can actually connect with them, not because of the same experience, but because of the same depth of emotion that you have been able to feel. So oftentimes someone that's had a lot of bumps in the road or big hurdles or a lot of challenges, that is helping you to connect you on an even deeper level with someone else. And so that's just another frame of thinking that you can start to use. Now, also, I had one more concept that I wanted to bring this with. When you look at, again, these big challenges, right? When you look at God, the creator, all right, that you were some like star in the universe and all of a sudden you made your way down to earth, whatever you want to believe in, right? And you can believe that we're here on earth for nothing or that we're here for everything, and it's both, most likely. And so think about when you're having those tough moments and you don't believe in God or anything, and you're sitting there on the edge of your bed on your knees like, oh my God, like give me the strength to get through this, like give me, just make it so that all of these circumstances go away. It's the creator and God is here so that he gave you these circumstances so that you will change. It's not that he gave you the circumstances so that the circumstances will change. All right. So when you look at all of these things that are happening in your life, it's so that you will change. And so that is the lesson that is trying to be portrayed through you right now. And so one of the other things was when you're looking for that strength, when you're looking for resilience, when you're looking for wisdom, all of these different character traits that we want, right? Like, who do you want? You want someone that's strong and resilient and wise, right? Even think about when you're dating, right? You want those character traits in someone. And so all of these different challenges that you're going through, well, that's the cost in order to have those. Some of the wisest people aren't just the ones that go to Harvard and read all of the books. It's who has the most life experience. That's what makes you very wise, right? Just like when we were talking about in Low Gravity, I was like, you got a lot of wisdom in this room. So look out, you know, like when you want strength, okay, well, you can go and lift a couple of 5-pound weights, but how do you really get strong? Well, you need to lift something heavier. And so it's the same thing that life is giving you. It's giving you these heavy situations so that you can get stronger.
Yeah. Oh, no, talk about an incredible summary. Shawn, those 3 points are perfect for people listening right now. And, we'll clip all that for sure, because that was perfect. But it's true, to echo everything Shawn just said, that every point he just said is so true. And you got to look at it. If we stay on the faith concept, if you pray for strength, that God give you strength, what you're going through, he has to build the strength in you. It always starts from you. And to do that, to build the strength, he's going to create challenges. And if you can get through the challenges, you're going to gain your strength. And that comes back to the wisdom Shawn said. And I think a lot of people sometimes we sit there and we pray, and we are praying to God, praying to the Creator, everything like this. But this is I believe, a co-created universe, and we
Mhm.
are the co-creators. God is the creator. We were created in God's image, which means we were meant to create here. And if He created the world and we are created in His image, that means we are supposed to create with our time here, in whatever form that looks like. So for us to pray, please give me strength and whatnot. You are speaking to Him, but you're also speaking to yourself. You're speaking to your Creator. You're speaking to the universe. You're speaking to yourself. And so when you're speaking to yourself, and here's it, okay, your higher self is like, okay, you want strength. Well, we're going to have to go through X, Y, and Z, but get ready because it's going to be everything that you wanted. And then that's the process of life. And it's a matter of, and I don't say to people to pick your words and choose your words closely. It's like, no, pray for what your heart is calling out for. Because when your heart is calling out for that, that's your higher self speaking to you, is this is what we need to move forward with. And if it's strength, if it's wisdom, if it's knowledge, whatever it is. And, it's been passed around a lot on social media, but there's some pastors speaking, and it's like, I prayed for strength and God gave me challenges. I prayed for X, Y, and Z and God gave me this. And it's not what you think you're going to get when you pray for this. And I'm not saying that's not how God, that's exactly how God works, but at the same time, it might not be for you. It might be different, but at the same time, we have to sit there and realize our role in this life. And that comes back to purpose. And you are your own person. You have your family, you got your environment, you got your school, you got your friends, you got all this stuff, but none of that makes you. You make it. And so how you show up is what you'll get out of life. So if you're trying to pursue these great visions or great goals or challenges, whatever it might be for yourself, phenomenal. Know that you have everything you need to accomplish that inside you, and you have to realize it. That's why life is going to start to craft your journey and your adventure a certain way, so your eyes finally open up. As the scriptures say, the scales fall off your eyes, you finally open them, the veil is torn so you can see. In all of these aspects, it's trying to get us to realize that we are a co-creator. We play a role here, and how we walk that out is how we get what we are meant to have in this life, we'll say. But no, Shawn, I think everything you said, man, is so powerful. And we got a couple minutes before we'll hop off this thing, but so we'll start to round everything out. But I love everything you said, Shawn, and I want people to know where they can find you. But let's end thing on a big exclamation point. We'll say, what's a final message you want to leave with people before we tell them where they can find more of you? Let it come to you.
The number one thing that comes to me right now is to let go of the expectation of how things should look. And that really roundtables a lot of what we've talked about already, right?
True.
With the expectation of how your boss is going to react. Or just like you were saying now, of we ask for these things or we pray for these different things, and then it doesn't come in the way of which we want it to look, right? And who is to say that life shouldn't look exactly like it does right now? No one, right? It's just because we have a certain expectation.
Yeah.
And that's it. So if you're able to detach from that expectation of how you think your life should look, you will be able to bring more joy to each situation, right? Many of us have worked in whatever XYZ job. You might have had this 60-year-old woman, all right, working with you. You might have, if you've ever worked in a restaurant, you have the like a Filipino dishwasher, right? And I'm just giving different example. Not every dishwasher is Filipino, right?
Exactly.
Just from my experience in restaurants, right? But you look at all of these different people, and they are so much happier than you are, right? Why is that? You've got this 60-year-old woman that's working at Marshall's, and she loves her life just stocking shelves, helping people give a number to the dressing room, right? And they might not have an expectation of how life should look. They're just bringing joy and peace to their life, and they're bringing it to everything that they do. Someone that's just washing dishes, or someone that's just laying bricks, right? And they're so much happier than you are, right? And then you're like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? So it's letting go of that expectation of what life should look like, because as soon as you start to bring more of the love and joy and fulfillment to each moment, your life will start to look differently in this 3D reality regardless.
Yeah.
So just like really working hard in that every moment. I'm going to try to let go a little bit more, have less expectations here. Right. And so I think that's the most important message that we can get across to really round this out. To find me everywhere, I'm at Growth by Shawn, and Shawn is SHAWN. And again, as you stated, it was the Growth by Shawn podcast.
Right. Perfect. Yeah, no, I echo that final point right there. Everyone, this is just a tidbit of what Shawn brings to his podcast, and he has great guests on. He's got great content out there as well. You're going to find his podcast. You're going to find his Instagram. You're going to find his social media in the YouTube description here. You're going to see it in the credits about to roll for you. But I'm telling you to go check him out. And Shawn's podcast, you can still go find all the episodes, but he's about to bring it back better than ever. And I love seeing that because, as I said earlier, 2 years ago, last time I talked to Shawn, whenever it was, it's Shawn, great Shawn, but now it's like a different version of it. It's leveled up. And so to see what I know and feel he's about to bring to this Growth by Shawn podcast, the guests he's going to have on, the conversation he's going to have, I'm telling you guys, please go subscribe. You know, Shawn, where is it on all platforms? Is it working?
On all platforms. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Guys, go subscribe on all platforms. Don't miss one. I'm telling you, the guests he has on, he's had on are incredible. But what's about to come out just off of this conversation and where he's taking all this energy, he's walking in that Dharma, he's walking in that joy and that energy. It can only create something great. And I'm telling you, it's going to create something great. But please go subscribe to him, guys. Like this message on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button below. Share this message to someone who you feel needs to hear it. If anyone popped into your mind and connected to a message Shawn and I or a concept we talked about throughout this episode, that's a clear-cut sign to you that person might need as well. Don't spread Shawn with it. Don't spread me. Lend a hand to help them. Lead the way in that process. And please subscribe to Once a Week if you have not already. Hit that button below. Hit that bell for the alerts. You know exactly when we post. But guys, please go subscribe to Shawn. If you need a coach, go to BillyGLifeCoaching.com, set up a call with me, and we'll dive into all these topics today to help you out. But lastly, Shawn, I thank you so much for being here, man. I love our conversations. I cannot wait to have you on again. I love co-creating with you in these process. Man, I can't wait to see where you take the next chapter for yourself.
Yeah, it's always amazing, Billy. Thank you very much for having me today, truly.
Of course. Awesome. Have a good one, guys.
You know I've been around and doing it, but now it's my time to shine and start proving it. I'm losing it, I'm moving it. The city is where I'm made, Bostonian flow, I kick it a back bay. Yeah, I got game, God in a fan way. We the city of the champs, every sport we play. Spit wetter than the harbor, yeah, I'm flowing like the Charles. I be speeding on this beat, call it Turnpike Miles. Yeah, it's Boo signing on, John to the Hancock, and I'm always key, I'm ready to unlock. I be doing big things, don't even have a deal. Yeah, I battle through these bars, yeah, I always bunk a hill. I know that any city I go in, that I be flyer than Logan, and I be flying high. I want this ship up in here all the way.